Today, we have an amazing show for you, and it's from CMG, the Conversations Media Group. This is one of the first shows, if not the first one, where this group is going to be getting together to really do something amazing. We have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Cyrus Webb. Many of you know him already. Some of you probably don't. Whether that's good or bad, I'm not sure, but we'll get into that as we get into this particular episode for CMG Group. Cyrus Webb is more than a best-selling author. He's more than a media host. He's more than, I'm just going to call it, a marketing maven. One of the things I genuinely like to call him is friend. You know, so even though you might hear some things from all of us today that might not sound that friendly, but it will be a very engaging show. It will be interesting, and I'm sure you're definitely going to learn a lot about the man himself, Mr. Cyrus Webb. I have my co-hosts here with me, Miss Melissa Banks. I have Dr. Teresa A. Smith, both best-selling authors themselves and business moguls as women as well online with some great products and services that are offered. But Melissa, Teresa, Cyrus, I'm excited about being here with you all today. How are you guys doing?
Doing really good. Glad to be with you, my friends and my family.
Oh, well, that is good. That is good. I hope we're all saying the same thing and smiling at the end with this as well. We're going to, Cyrus, we have some very interesting things that we want to bring out about you in this episode. We have some questions that not only we want to know about, but our audience and your audience as well are going to be impacted, I'm sure, by the questions and the answers that come forth from this. And we're just going to go round robin, and we're going to start with Melissa, and we're going to go to Dr. Taz, and then myself will round it out and close out the show. So, Melissa, I'm kicking this off to you. Take it away.
Wow, Cyrus, this is fun, right? I get to ask you the questions. This is exciting to me. How are you doing today?
Doing extraordinary, and I am excited. Thank you, Melissa.
I am. I want to just start, Cyrus. You know, you have such an incredible career, and he talked about that a little bit just then, but you have an incredible career across radio, television, publishing, social media, and more. You can't, the list will go on, but you've established yourself as a leader in so many areas, but especially the media industry. So, was there a pivotal moment, something that sparked your passion for media, and how did you transform that passion into a lasting and successful career?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate that. So, this is what I would say. Media was not something I intended to do. You know, some people say, I want to do this, I want to do that. Media was not on my list. I wanted to write and I wanted to draw. Now, the life I have been able to live has allowed me to do those two things. But when it comes to media, Melissa, it all began with me sharing my story. So a lot of people know back in 2003, I was speaking at an event. I'm a person who's a suicide attempt survivor. I was speaking at an event, shared a bit of my story, and a man walked up to me after the event at the Jackson Medical Mall. Melissa, you're familiar with that in Jackson, Mississippi. And he walked up to me and he said, I really enjoyed your speech. You have a very nice voice. Have you ever thought about doing radio? And the man was Charles Evers, the brother of Medgar Evers. He owned a radio station in Jackson, Mississippi. I told him I had not thought about doing radio, and he said, I think you would be good at it. And that was the beginning of it. But Melissa, I have to say about the pivotal moment was actually that first episode that went so horribly wrong in the beginning. All of our mutual friend, Chris Collier, his wife, the way I know Chris is he married a friend of mine named Angela Sarton. She, of course, now is Angela Collier. I was doing the very first episode of the show that was literally called Let's Talk. It wasn't even called Conversations at the time. And their idea for the show was that it was going to be almost like a talking head show where I talked, people called in and gave feedback on what I was talking about or that kind of thing. It started off horribly. And I think because that's never been my way. I've never tried to use my voice as a person to tell you what you should think about different things. I've always been interested in other people. So what happened was halfway through the show, the very first show, about halfway through, the producer tells me I had a caller. And the caller was Angela Collier now. And she was talking about, Cyrus, I'm so proud of you. I'm listening to you on the radio. And something told me to ask her one question. because Angela was a visual artist. And I said to her, Angela, thank you so much. For those who don't know you, why don't you tell them about yourself and what you do? And when she started answering the question, Melissa, that's when I realized it wasn't about me. The guest was supposed to be the star. And so that was the pivotal moment for me in the very beginning. And I'm so glad it happened on that first episode, because I was able to pivot right away and say, no, I'm not supposed to be the one doing all the talking. I'm supposed to have a guest here to share their story. And that was what really changed everything for me.
I found it really interesting. You said that that show went horrible, but actually, that show went amazing because it opened your eyes and showed you what you truly should be doing. And that's what's so important. So I would consider that an amazing show, not a horrible show. But that's also a lesson to anyone who hears it is what we think it's supposed to be like is not always what God intends for it to be like. So thank you for sharing that with us. Now, Cyrus, let's talk about M.O.C.I M, Men of Color in Media. I'm so excited about that. And it's such a powerful platform. What was your inspiration behind starting M.O.C.I M, and what is that you hope people will take away from it?
Well, Melissa, I'm going to say something. It may be a surprise to a lot of people. I'm black, and I know, I know, I know. I'm black. I'm a black male. And honestly, in my career, I was very fortunate to have people I looked at like Tavis Smiley on television and radio. People like Michael Baisden that was on. We don't if you turn on television today, we don't have that. But there are people who were there like LeVar Burton that told me, you know what? Maybe it's okay that I could actually talk about books and people would want to listen and they'll watch that, right? We don't have those examples anymore. What I wanted to do with M.O.C.I M was to show that I wasn't an anomaly, that there were others out there that can show you that regardless of what you look like, and what is happening right now, I think, with the impact that women are making in broadcasting, television, with magazines, and I think is great. But I do think that not just black men, but men of color, which is alluded to in the title, need to be able to say, you know what, I have an example I can look forward to. And I have someone who's willing to share with me how they got to where they got, share their stories, answer my questions. So the M.O.C.I M movement is, I tell people, will be my legacy project, because it not only is going to be a magazine, it's going to be a podcast, and we're going to actually have events as well, all geared in helping men of color be able to not only be able to network with each other, but also support each other and help to expand our audience. So that is really was the inspiration behind it, because I realized that I was someone who had found a lot of success, and I hope to continue to do that. But I want others to know, if this is the path that they want, that there are people willing to help them do the same thing.
One of the things that's so powerful, but one of the things that excites me personally about M.O.C.I M is it's nothing like seeing someone who looks like you, sounds like you, doing amazing things, and being willing to open up that platform, not hold it close, and not want to share it. I've shared this story before, that my experience when I first started my business is going into an establishment that wasn't willing to share anything with me about it, but to have someone to just open up the door and say, you know what, I am going to make this easier for others who comes behind me. And I think that just says so much about you and the person that you are. So I'm excited to see what M.O.C.I M will do. And for my final question is, for young men of color who aspire to work in media but feel uncertain about where to begin, what are some practical steps they should take to get started? And how does M.O.C.I M provide the support and guidance needed to help them navigate that journey?
I love that. So this is really the basis of what I hope M.O.C.I M does, Melissa. So the main thing is to know that your voice matters. And I think for myself, as someone who grew up being told that I talked white or dressed white, I think that to me is the biggest disservice to anyone, because it's basically saying that because you may choose to speak as well as you can, that makes you to an other. And I think instead of realizing that all of us are individuals, right? I'm always been a quirky, nerdy guy. I just happen to be black. I think, what I hope M.O.C.I M does, Melissa, is to show people that regardless of how people see you, no matter how they may try to define you, the importance of defining yourself and knowing that your voice, it matters, and where you come from matters. And I hope MoCom is able to not only to empower them, but help them to see themselves, but also realize that literally the sky is the limit. I mean, I'm a country boy from Mississippi. I don't know if you guys know this, even though this is on my Facebook page. I have no college education, no broadcast experience, just a good old boy that never meant no harm, and yet I've been able to do the things that I do. And that's what I want to be able to show other people they can do too, no matter where they may live.
Well, Cyrus, I'm excited for all that you do. I know that that day that I met you, so many things changed in my life, and I believe by having the heart that you have, and anybody that knows you have a huge heart, and being willing to share the stories and guide them. So many people are going to be impacted by MoCom. So I'm excited that you had the vision to even start it and then take the actions to make it happen. So I'm excited to see for what's to come with MoCom. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And I want to say I'm so glad that you could be a part of this program. And it's been great watching you over the past 5 years and all the great things that you're doing too.
Thank you so much.
That is amazing. Melissa, thank you so much for that. We had the breaking news here that Cyrus Webb is Black. We got that. So thank you. But what's funny with so much of this, before we go to Dr. Taz, is that obviously people say these types of things shouldn't matter, the color of our skin, the ethnicity, religion, or whatever. But we know that these things play a part in so many different ways. And I think someone like Cyrus is allowing people to see that none of that matters unless you make it matter, unless it's an issue for you, because the sky is definitely the limit for those that want to reach for it. So thank you so much, Melissa and Cyrus and Dr. Taz. I'm excited about what you have to ask the man, and because he has to answer questions now. He doesn't like to tell people what to do. So,
of course not. No.
Not at all, Cyrus. It's so good to have you as my captive now.
Well, Tosh, thank you so much. It's so good to be able to speak with you. And I want to say, give you your flowers too. It's been so great to watch your growth since I've first been able to meet you with your book, Stronger, all the great things you're doing. I'm really excited about this.
Well, Cyrus, thank you so much, Cyrus. As I was prepping for these questions, let me just go see, I'm in a tearful mode. And one of the questions brought me to tears. I said, now, please don't get on there with Cyrus and start crying. But as Angelia said recently, sometimes tears are about birthing things too. And it shouldn't be looked upon as a negative. So just know I might get a little tearful. And that's because I'm looking at all that you have accomplished in the time period that I've known you. And you are amazing. And I thank God for putting you in my life and also seeing how you would be such a gift to the world because you are like the Energizer Bunny. You keep going and you keep giving to others. And that is so important. So, Cyrus, tell me, at what moment did you realize it was time to shift from building your own brand, that CMG, from CMG, to create a platform for other men of color in media?
Yeah, Taz, here's the thing. I've always wanted to do it. But, there is that old saying, and it's an old adage, but it's true. Timing is everything. And what I have realized is that I needed to, for one thing, get my own footing and show other people, have the social proof to show people what they could do. I think a lot of times what happens, Taz, is that we jump, we have a good heart. We want to be able to help, but we're not really in a position to do that yet because we haven't fully established ourselves. I wanted to do that, and I've done that now for 22 years of showing people what longevity looks like, what reinvention looks like, and what growth looks like. And so now that I've gotten to this place, it feels only right because I've already seen what's coming for me. And I know that if I don't start it this year, and as I've said to Earl, I already know MoCom's going to be one of the biggest things I've ever done in my life. I already know it. But I also need it up here to be ready for that too, because I'm a person who I'm very strategic in the way I do anything. And so I know too that a lot of times I'm not ready for something up here to be able to handle it. And now I'm at a place of acceptance in my career, acceptance in my growth in the place in this world. And I'm ready to be able to do it. And I'm excited about it.
Cyrus, I like the fact that you're always so transparent and the fact that you knew that you weren't ready here for MoCom.
Mm-hmm.
So, what challenges did you face, you know, as it relates to shaping the way that you mentor others today? Because you've been mentoring for 22 years, basically. But what are the challenges that you're facing now as you do that?
That's a really good question. So I think for myself, I think because I love movie references. And when you said that, I thought about a reference from X-Men Dark Phoenix. And for those who haven't seen it, at the very end of the movie, there Jean Grey, who's the most powerful mutant, she's faced with a challenge. And she can either destroy this evil force, but in doing so, she has the risk of destroying those around her. And the evil force, the Borg, says to her, your emotions make you weak. And it's at that moment Jean realizes and says, no, my emotions make me strong. And she was able to do what she needed to do to handle the situation. I bring that up because I think the biggest challenge has been being able to realize that I have the power to do both. I have the power to encourage, also have the power to be condescending. And that's something that all of us have, right? I can choose to use my influence for good, or I can use it to try to make me seem like I'm better than other people and untouchable, and I'm up here and you're down here. So the biggest challenge has been letting people know that I am who I say I am, Taz. And I think a lot of times we put people in a certain place, but then we get to know them, we're like, well, they're not really what I thought they were. I wanted people to see throughout my career that I am exactly who I said I was, because I think that was going to help them to understand I'm someone they could trust. You may not always like what I have to say, but you can't trust the fact that I know what I'm talking about and the fact that I mean well in what I'm doing, because I've shown that now for these years. And I think we all need that, right? We need to know that people care about us, but will also hold us accountable. I hold myself accountable, and I want people to do the same for me. But I also realize that when it comes to getting into a place of training and encouraging and coaching, that it does take that realism, that transparency, but also that ability to know that yes, words matter, but also truth matters, and we have to be willing to tell the truth if we truly want to be able to grow. And sometimes that's not easy, but it's necessary.
Well, Cyrus, I certainly agree with you. And for 22 years, you've shown us both sides of who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
you hold yourself accountable. And as a person who is being mentored by you, you hold me accountable. And yes, you sometimes tell me things that I probably don't want to hear. And then you'll tell me things that'll take me a week or two to finally get it when I settle down. But it still moves me further along. And that does build credibility, which is so important in this industry. So thank you for being that type of person because it makes a difference. Now, Cyrus, if you could go back and give the young Cyrus, that young man that people said talk white, and I can identify, they said that I talk proud. That's the way that was the vernacular they used to use. But that young man that talked white, what piece of advice would you give him that could change the game for you? What would it be?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think for myself, and I'm almost getting a little emotional thinking about that actually, because the thing is that people don't get. That is a really good question.
I'm telling you, these questions had me tearing up too.
That it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Yes, you're different, but it's going to be okay. And that people aren't just saying that you're good just to make you feel better, that you are good, and it's okay to be good. But don't allow that to make you feel like you're anything more than what you were meant to be. It doesn't make you better than other people. It makes you equipped. I think for myself, when I reflect back on
Just take your time. It's so good. I told you that when I was prepping, I got
when
tearful.
I reflect back on when I wanted to take my life, it's because I thought I was not good. Even though people told me I was, I didn't believe it because I looked different. And, I did things, that other kids weren't doing. I was wanting to read all the time. And if I could go back, I would tell them it's okay. It's okay to be different. It's okay to embrace who you are. And I think you know what? Even with that being said, now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't think I would have the life I had if I had not gone through it, though. Because I think I needed to see that in spite of even me getting to a dark place, that yeah, I could handle just about anything. But I appreciate that question because that's what I try to be for other people, to let them know it's okay. And to let them know that even if other people don't see it, it doesn't mean it isn't in you. And it doesn't mean you can't do it. And that if you've told yourself that you can't do it because of what some other people are doing, just keep going. It's going to be okay. I mean, that's it. That
And that is so powerful, though, Cyrus, just to keep going, that it's going to be okay. It's just so powerful. Now, MoCom, how does MoCom now provide that support for the next generation of media talent?
Yeah. And that's definitely why I know now is a time for MoCom, because again, I don't want people to think that I'm an anomaly. That I mean, I'm from Mississippi. It's like, I tell people, and it's not me trying to make myself seen, it's not false humility. It's the fact that I'm not from a place that is known, for just churning out the greatest. Now we've had some great ones come from this state. But I want people to know that through MoCom, you're not just seeing my story. I want you to be able to turn and see yourself. Now, I think that is why I really believe so much in this. And quite honestly, I I knew it was not time before, because again of what I mentioned about being right up here. Because I've never had a problem with failure. I definitely have a problem with success. And that's part of my own thing. I just have, and so I'm known to self sabotage. I've talked about that before, which is an ironic thing. Most people don't have that issue, but that is my issue. It has always been my issue, and so I think, through MoCom, I think it really is going to be able to let people see through the pages, through the podcast. This is me, and I can be this. No matter where I am, no matter what people may have said that I couldn't do, I can be this. And that's what I want to be able to do.
So, that legacy that you're building is not just about you, it's about lifting others. So, years from now, because as you said earlier in other places, you're turning 50 this year, correct? So, you've been at this for 22 years. So, you started when you were 28, a young man, and you're still going to be a young man because 50 is the new 20. So, your legacy of lifting others years from now, when people look back at MoCom, what do you hope is the biggest impact it will be on the media industry and the lives it's touched?
Yeah, I think that for me, the biggest impact would be in changing the way we look at those who are leaders. Because I think, for myself, and even, I mean, with my relative success that I have had, we know that there are bigger, I mean, I'm not crazy enough I mean, there are bigger media personalities than me, right? But that's just the thing. I mean, I think that I should be able to say, yeah, but I know about such and such in Colorado who has a podcast that does great. Maybe you haven't heard of them, but we want to give them a platform. And that's what I want people to see. For myself, when I look at some of the people who were role models for me, Taz, I mean, they were people, of course, I didn't know, but I looked at them and thought, I can still see myself doing this, doing it my way, not trying to be them, right? Because they have that covered. But just like with all of you, that there are people who can look at us and say, wow, maybe that dream is attainable. Maybe it is something that I can do. And I think that's the biggest compliment that I can be able to give in anything that I do in my career.
Well, Cyrus, thank you so much. As you were speaking, I looked at your backdrop, Earl. I looked at that backdrop, Earl, not the fish. To lighten the mood a little bit, and I saw a spider web or like a map, and I see how MoCom is going to spread and make the connection for men of color all across the country. And I'm just so happy that I get a chance to interview you about your vision when it's on the ground before it just spreads like wildfire. So thank you for this
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Todd. Great questions.
Great questions, Dr. Tosh. Great answers. Mr. Webb, we did find out, like all of us know already, Cyrus will say things that we don't like, right?
Wait a
But
minute.
it is with a purpose. You know, he'll have
Wait, did we
jellyfish
did
on
we
his desk and
did we
no
learn
one
that?
knows why.
Did we
And
learn that I will say things? This is new to me. I didn't realize that.
but it's one of the things that those of us that are close to you understand and know that it's never out of a sense of malice. It's never out of a sense of anger. It's none of that. It is love, quite honestly. And obviously through Dr. Todd's questions, we got a chance to see that emotional side of you, to know that you are somewhat human with, who you are and how you do things. And we got a movie reference again, which is always going to happen, with that. Cyrus, it's my turn now. And so this is an honor for me, not just because I think you're an amazing entrepreneur. You're a great friend and a great inspiration to so many different people, not just us that are interviewing you or in your inner circle. But I'm looking at the growth that you've had over the past 20 years and looking at MoCom coming into existence now, in 2025. Explain how you've been able to build such a global audience of not only fans, but guests and celebrities that have now put you in a position to do what you're doing with MoCom.
Yeah, I think, Earl, that goes to, there's another saying, real recognizes real. And one thing I've never in my professional life tried to do is be anything I'm not. And it's funny that you would ask me that question, because I can remember a conversation we would have when I first started going to Los Angeles, being in my echoey office and doing interviews. But that was just me. I'm a very simple guy. It was working for me. What I was doing was working. And I think that is what has connected people to me, whether they're celebrities or people who are, they know that, okay, this guy, this dude, I mean, I can remember only one time that a celebrity came in and she said, this is a really simple setup. But what was so funny was after we did the interview, she says, I think I will start that podcast. And she did. After seeing my very simple, in her mind, she needed to have all this other stuff. And now she has her own podcast now too, Human to Human. But I think, for myself, it's been, Earl, about just being real. I think for celebrities, a lot of times we put them on this level that is not realistic. And yes, they may have done some great things, have been a part of great products and all of that. But I think a lot of times we forget their humanity. What Cyrus Webb tries to do is remind us all that we are humans, that we all are just individuals trying to figure this thing out in whatever career we may have. And I think that's what my audience has gotten from this too, is that, okay, this guy is just like me. He's not trying to be this, Lamborghini driving, hustler and all this kind of stuff. I'm just an everyday person trying to figure this thing called life out. And I think that's the connection that my audience feels, and also my guests feel too.
And I think that it's going to be very important. I mean, when I think about your beginnings and, going back to stapling, books and magazines together back before there was an Amazon and things of that nature, and not caring about it, but just wanting to put out the work, you know, how do you feel you'll be able to impact those coming to you, especially with your project here with MoCom? Because you have a history of bringing and shedding light on people that people have never heard of before. And you do that kind of, it's very different from a lot of different podcasters and people that interview. They want the big celebrities and the big stars, but you start with the regular folk, and that brings you so much. How do you think that's going to impact MoCom as well?
I think that's what's going to make it so big. And I think, again, that's why I wasn't ready before, because I had things I wanted to do. I'm a planner. as all of you know. And I knew that if it grew into what I knew it was going to be at that point, I would have to make some major sacrifices. Now, every year, that's been one of the things as an entrepreneur I've had to do, and as a human being, that realize that, okay, if I'm taking on something, something has to give. You can't just keep piling on without cutting back. So I had made the announcement in 2023 that I was going to be cutting back on Conversations Live, the radio show, which is my baby. That's what I started 22 years ago. It wasn't going away, but I knew I had to cut back to be able to fulfill my obligation with my on camera work with Amazon and other projects. So the same is true with 2025. It's so funny when I thought about it at the end of last year that it was almost fitting that Blog Talk Radio, the platform that introduced me to a lot of people 16 years ago, was ending, because that chapter of my life was ending, which was then opening up the door for me to have a brand new chapter with what I'm building now and with M.O.C.I.M. So I think that is the big thing for me, or when I look at it, is that for myself now, not only am I ready, I think I'm in a position to really let it be what it's going to be and to be okay with that. For me, I have to sit with something, turn it over my head and say, okay, am I okay with this occupying the space that it does? And can I give myself to it without dragging my feet? And I can now say I am.
And it shows with that, which it kind of leads me to my last question. I mean, because you've never traditionally liked to take the spotlight, right? But you're taking that on now in a really big way with projects like M.O.C.I.M and others that you have coming up. What is it taken for you to get over the fear of the spotlight and the power that is bringing to you now?
Yeah, it goes to realizing two things, Earl. One, that I know I'm not going to stop. So for someone who's watching this and listening to this, if you know you're not going to stop doing what you're doing, you can only continue to get better and bigger. So that then goes to the second part for me, which has always been the challenge of being able to accept that. Again, using another movie reference with the Matrix Revolutions, where Smith is talking to Neo, and Neo realizes at the end that he has to give up in order to save the world. And when Smith says to him, why do you keep fighting? Neo says to him, because I choose to. But then he also says at the end, it's inevitable. Earl, I realize for me, it's inevitable. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to get any smaller. And this is only going to get bigger. So I have to embrace that. And whatever that comes with, I have to be ready for that and comfortable with it. And I made the decision back in 2023 that, okay, Cyrus, you have to stop this pumping the brakes. It's time to really put your foot on the gas. And so that's led us to where we are.
Well, that's amazing. This has been amazing. I want to thank, obviously Cyrus for taking the time out to do this, or telling us to do it. And, Melissa and Dr. Taz for, just making this a great moment in time for where Cyrus is right now and where he's actually looking to go. Melissa, Teresa, any final thoughts?
I'm just excited for you. I think about when I first met you, I didn't know who you were or what you stood for, but I came across your page for the first time, and it happened to be the day before you were doing an event here locally. I walked in and introduced myself. You didn't know me. I didn't know you or what you did. I just knew I wanted to be there that morning. But I felt at home. I felt comfortable. I felt like I had known you forever. That was in 2019. And our relationship has only grown. And you've pushed me. You've made me cry. You've made me angry. You pulled all
Wow.
these emotions out of me that I was so comfortable with keeping them tucked away. You pull it out, and I'm so grateful and proud of you and all that you've.
Well, I should say we're even now because Taz made me cry, which is brilliant television, by the way, Taz. Congratulations.
Yes.
Well, Cyrus, I'm so glad that I could do that, because when I first started doing my first interview, the first set of interviews for Talk with Taz, Transform with Taz, I had my guests crying. I had that young man cry, and then the next person was crying. And I said to whomever, the third or fourth, I hope I don't get a reputation as making people cry. But now fast forward all this time, and like Melissa, I'm so grateful for Jacqueline Thomas, suggesting that I contact you. And I think that was like November, December of 2018. And we have been together since that time. And I have released so many books since that time. I've done so many things that I dreamed about doing, but I didn't have the person there to push me and to lead me. And you've done that. And I'm eternally grateful. Yes, you do tell me what to do. Guys, it's an inside joke. So for those who want him to consult with you, he doesn't tell you what to do. It's just our inside joke. Told me what to do, and I've done it. And I can see how doing the work and listening to your guidance has helped me to progress. And I just can't wait to see what M.O.C.I.M is going to turn out to be. I have ideas also because everything that you touch grows and becomes brilliant. It's amazing. You know, that's your word. It's amazing. And I know this
Thank
is
you for
going to
that.
be amazing too. And I just can't wait to see it as an insider looking at what's
Thank
to
you. I
come.
appreciate
So
that.
just thank you so much for all that you do for me personally, CMG family, and the world as a whole. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, this
Thanks
has
for
been
that.
amazing. Melissa and I are the only ones that did not cry during this episode. But this has really been impactful for me, just hearing the questions and the answers. It's been powerful because this is a CMG production. I'm sure there'll be more to come with that. So I look forward to that as well. Cyrus, thank you so much for your time, your inspiration, your love, your care, your fussing, you're telling us what to do, all that kind of stuff. You know, we definitely appreciate you for it. To all the watchers and the listeners, make sure you follow any links that are in the description because it'll lead you to different places that you probably need to know about, whether it's Cyrus Webb, whether it's Melissa, whether it's Teresa, myself, the things coming up with M.O.C.I.M and other projects that Cyrus definitely is going to have coming up as well. So for this episode of the CMG Group, we definitely thank you and we'll see you on the next episode. You take care.